All right, let's get started.
Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Or do we do roll call
Do roll
first?
call.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes. Commission Chair Adams,
Present.
Vice Chair Kramer,
Present.
Commissioner Novi, Commissioner O'Connor,
Here.
Commissioner Parker, and Commissioner Switzler.
Here.
Let the record show we have a quorum with all commissioners present.
Thank you, Maria. And now we can stand for the pledge. Who'd like to lead?
We're ready, begin.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Connor. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
Okay. Any oral communications?
No oral communications.
Moving right along to our presentation. Kelly, the floor is yours.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today. Let's see, the slides are up on here. Yeah, so I co-chair a group that's in the region here called the San Diego Building Electrification Coalition. We definitely were involved a couple of years ago when you had a little bit of activity going on around electrification, so I appreciate a chance to come back and talk again. We're talking a little bit about induction cooking today. So, next. So just a word about the coalition itself. We're a group of, at this point, almost 40 different organizations throughout the region. Lots of different kinds of groups, community groups, labor unions, business, faith, justice, as well as environmental groups. There's a lot of folks for a lot of reasons that really understand how important it is to be moving to building electrification and making sure we do it in an equitable way. And before I dive into sort of the details, just to make sure we're all on the same page, I have a couple of kind of background slides on electrification. So next. So really building electrification is a pretty simple concept around switching any appliances you have in your homes, instead of burning fossil fuels inside your home, to switch to all electric appliances. And there's lots of great technologies out there today. And there's really just 4 basic appliances that usually come up when you look at homes: water heaters and space heating. There's heat pumps now that can do those. Clothes dryers, there's actually heat pumps or just standard electric clothes dryers for that too. And then stoves. Stoves are always a little bit tricky because it's kind of close to the heart. It's sort of cultural that people like their stoves. So I think it's really important to kind of have that discussion and understand kind of where that fits into the discussion. I think part of what's important to think about around this is that building electrification is coming. It's going to be happening over the next few decades, probably. It's going to take a while, but it is coming. It's the direction that society is moving into. It's a key part of all the different climate action strategies that you see out there, including here in Encinitas. In terms of new construction, in California, there's REACH codes, including the one here in Encinitas, and eventually through state building codes that are really moving us towards all electric buildings. Another one here in Encinitas was put on hold recently because of some legal action, but it's expected that that will sort itself out over time, and really all construction that's new over, again, the next 5-ish years is going to be all electric. The harder one's going to be existing buildings and homes that have already been built. But even in that area, different climate action plans are putting together some pretty aggressive targets around that. I have a snip of the one from the city of San Diego. Pretty ambitious in terms of what they're trying to do. 45% of natural gas usage from existing buildings by 2030, 90% by 2035. Those are pretty tall orders. The other thing that's happening is at the state level, there's been a couple of different actions. I've pulled out the one from the scoping plan, where they're going to be looking to restrict the sales of gas appliances over time. And they're doing that both for greenhouse gas reasons as well as air quality reasons. And so there'll be a point in time where when you have a piece of equipment that fails, you're going to have to buy an electric one. There won't be gas ones available on the market. So part of what you want to think about is, what does that mean to my community? How can I prepare them? How can we make sure that that happens in a way that's going to address the different concerns that they may have? So when you talk to people about stoves and they begin to think about going electric, the first thing that comes up is, I hate electric. I know I grew up with these coil electric stoves, and they're bad. They're a little bit better now. You may have seen what they call the radiant glass top ones. They have a glass surface, but they turn red and they glow. That's how you can tell the difference between the radiant type and the newer electric induction ones. And so they're not a great technology, it's true. The way they work is they actually heat the coil, and then the coil heats the pan. So there's sort of a two-stage thing that happens. And you turn it on, and then you wait, and then it heats up, and then you go to change the temperature, and you wait, and then it changes. It's just not very responsive. It takes a while, and particularly with the coils, they're a pain in the neck to clean. So, oftentimes that's the image that people have when they think about electric stoves. And so I think it's important, the next slide, to really make a distinction between those type of stoves and induction. And for what it's worth, there is a place for the glass top radiant ones. They are a little bit less expensive, but if somebody's really concerned about their cooking experience and what it's like to cook kind of fancy foods or just traditional foods, induction is likely to be something that's going to be a lot more palatable if you're used to cooking on gas. The technology used is magnetism, and the way it works is it actually heats the pan directly. There isn't any intermediary. And what's kind of interesting is that it doesn't get hot around it because it's actually just heating the pan. Now the pan will turn around and heat the countertop right under it, but around it doesn't get hot. And so it's kind of cool. A lot of folks find that it's great to have kids help them cooking in these environments because it's not all that heat that's going on. It's got great control, instantaneous. When you change it, boom, it changes right away. And you actually boil water faster than gas. So it actually has a pretty good responsive in that regard. Because it's a glass top, it's easy to clean. It works with lots of different types of cookware. The catch is it has to have iron in it. Because it's magnetism, it has to have iron. Almost, many pans have it. The way you can tell if yours does or not is you literally stick a magnet to the bottom of it. See if it sticks. So if you have, for example, aluminum pans, they probably won't work, although some of the higher end aluminum have stainless steel sandwiched around it. So you just have to check and see what your cookware is. But if you have a cast iron pan, if you have those nice enamel ones, those all have lots of iron in them, so it's not a problem. If you've never tried it, it might be worth trying. I mean, it is different. It does take a little while to get used to it. Like anything that's new, you get a new phone, you got to get used to it. It's kind of just something you need to get used to. And so if you're interested to try them, there is a program that the San Diego Green Building Council sponsors to let you borrow one. It's kind of like a lending library, and it's kind of fun. They've just recently partnered with Solana Center here in Encinitas. You can actually pick one up there. It includes a pan, just in case you don't have one. And you pick it up, keep it for a month, and then bring it back. You just go online and schedule it, and there's folks who'll help you out. I brought one here that I put on the counter there. That's my personal one that I use at home. I have a gas stove, and what I do is I put that on top of it and just plug it into the wall outlet. And I use it 90% of the time. Sometimes I still need multiple burners and things like that, but I'm able to use that most of the time. And so, to be honest with you, you can borrow one, or they're really not that expensive if you just wanted to buy one and give it a shot and maybe hand it down when you're done with it to somebody else to try. So it's really not that crazy. I thought it was interesting that there's 16,000 ratings on Amazon on this one particular product. You can tell that these are not crazy things. Lots of people are buying them. They're pretty common. Next. The other thing that's interesting is professional chefs have really started to speak up about induction and what their experience has been like. In particular in Europe, induction has been very common for a long time. So you see a lot of international chefs that are very pro-induction. And they like a lot that it's very exact. They can actually set a temperature. They can tell people how long and for which way to do it. The other thing is that commercial kitchens are actually a lot cooler that use induction stoves. If you've ever been in a commercial kitchen or seen the movies where it's just the fire and the flames and the people are all hot and sweaty, you can literally drop the temperature 10 or 20 degrees when you go with induction cooktops in commercial kitchens. And not only with professional chefs, but it also comes up with more broader range of restaurants where you really want to look at the quality for workers who work in these kitchens and what it's like for them to be in those environments, particularly in the summertime. So it's interesting to see that it's solving a couple of different problems in the professional commercial kitchen world. In terms of the models that are out there, there's a whole range of them. You can get some low-end ones. I just, cut and paste a few off of Home Depot. I think these might have been on sale, but, you can usually find something under $1,000 for a full range that includes the stove. This one even includes some cookware in case you need it. The induction cooktops are the ones that just drop into the counter and, you have an oven somewhere else. There's plenty of super duper fancy ones if that's what you're into, $10,000 stoves, the people who get these really high-end classy things. There's a ton of fun products out there that people can pick from. One that I kind of like that's interesting is all of these electric stoves, the old style as well as the new induction one, take a 240-volt plug. Okay, and so one of the inconveniences of switching to that is you are going to have to run a cable, run an electric outlet to your stove area. That's a 240 plug, and you have to have space on your panel for it. There's some innovation going on where people are thinking about ways to address that, and this new product is coming out called the Charlie, they gave it a name, which is a 120-volt induction range. And the way they do that is they actually put a fairly substantial battery into it. It's actually like a really skinny, thin one that's towards the bottom of the unit. And you plug it into a standard 120-volt plug. It trickle charges it all day long. And then when you need it, it has a boost of energy you can use. The other thing that's kind of cool about it is if you lose power, your stove still works. And it has a plug on the back. You can plug in your refrigerator, anything, your phone, anything else you might need. It's kind of nice to have an extra battery in your kitchen. And somebody was telling me that the battery is big enough you can even take the tax credit for it that they have from the IRA. So people are innovating. They're thinking about new products. They're thinking about high-end, low-end. The market's really kind of fun these days to see all the new things coming out. So there's plenty of products out there if people are interested in it. But I did want to mention, where do gas stoves fit in terms of climate action? This is a pie chart. I kind of like it. It was tailored for the local region by the county RDF analysis that looked at how much, if you look at all the different things that burn fossil fuels in your home, really water heaters and space heaters are the vast majority. Stoves are a pretty small slice. So if all you're really looking at is greenhouse gas emissions, you might say, not that big a deal. And to some degree, I agree with that. It's really not one of the primary drivers of greenhouse gas emissions. Turns out, though, there's a couple other factors that are important to think about, though, when you consider stoves in the home and where they fit in. I have a couple of slides on them. One has to do with health impacts, and the other has to do with costs. So you may have heard earlier this year a little bit of discussion around the health impacts of gas stoves and burning, these combustion products in your home. And venting is great. Hopefully when you use your stove, you put the vent on. I've learned that that's really important. I open my windows. It's a lot like secondhand smoke to be turning on your gas stove and burning it in your home. Kind of think of it as, pulling your barbecue in and just turning it on in your home and, keeping all the windows closed. Probably not a good idea. It's really effectively the same thing. And so they've found that it's really not good for you. In particular, there's a lot of NOx emissions, nitrous oxides, that are not good for your health. Next page. And there was a study done, and it was one of those meta-studies of all the other studies, that this is actually what triggered some of the discussion earlier this year, that found a fairly substantial number of asthma cases in young children could be correlated with gas stoves in their homes. And so they think that that's actually a significant factor in that, it's something to consider if you have small children in your home. Next slide. One of the things I've heard, though, is like, why are we just hearing about this now? We've had gas stoves forever. Well, turns out we've kind of known about the problem for a long time. There's studies that go back decades. As I mentioned, the previous slide was just a study of earlier studies. There's a lot of information that's kind of been known in the scientific community about the health issues. But there's a lot of commercial businesses that want to promote their products that have done a good job with that and gotten folks to really tell you how awesome, cooking with gas and all the fun, ads that you've seen over the years. Folks think that that's kind of a major factor in why gas stoves became so popular, was a lot of the marketing that went on. So it's not a new issue, but it's just recently come up again in the news. The other factor with stoves is related to costs. If the only thing you have left in a new home that needs gas is the stove, does it really make sense to build all of the pipelines and build it all in and run it into your kitchen and have all that work done just for your stove. You know, I mean, maybe it does, but just recognize you're going to be paying a lot for that. We had a tour a while back of a new development in Carlsbad, just up the road. A fellow who had built 13 all-electric condos that were high-end. He estimated that he saved between $150,000 and $200,000 just by avoiding the piping and having to build out the plumbing that was necessary to support the natural gas. And so that made a big difference. They've also recently changed some of the rules. It used to be when you added gas to your new building that the utility company didn't charge you for it and just charged all the rest of the ratepayers and spread it out. They've taken that away recently, so the price would probably be even higher now because they're going to charge you for each and every new meter that they need to put in when you're building a new home. So, you know, home developers are going to be passing that money, you know, that cost along to home buyers, and so that's a consideration in terms of the community and what it's going to cost to buy homes. If you know, the last thing standing is your gas stove, and is that the reason you're going to be adding tens of thousands of dollars to the cost of each new home? Next. The other thing that comes up, if you really take a big step back and you say, okay, what about 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future? As we go through this transition to electricity, what's this going to look like as individual homes start to go all electric? You're going to have this patchwork of different homes that no longer need gas. And so on the left is a picture showing, you know, what if you had just a random selection of homes that happen to be electric and gas? You'd have to maintain the entire gas infrastructure across every neighborhood because you never know where that one home's going to be that still needs gas. There's actually some thought going on. PG&E is doing some pilots around this of what if we did some what they call targeted electrification, and we picked a neighborhood, you know, and we kind of made sure that it made sense for that neighborhood in terms of the people there and the things that are happening there, and we electrified the entire neighborhood. We could then decommission the gas pipeline that went to that neighborhood, save all of the costs that it would have taken to maintain that pipeline, and actually use that to help with the electrification. In particular, PG&E has proposed a pilot at Cal State University in Monterey Bay, where they had a pipeline that was aging and it was time to replace it. They are going to, instead of replacing it, electrify an entire section of campus, pay for it themselves. It will cost ratepayers less than if they had replaced the pipeline. So it's really kind of interesting to look at these things. So that's sort of, again, that last bit. What if all the homes still have the little blue flame because they have a stove in them? You won't be able to get all that cost savings. So there's sort of a community scale cost as well as an individual home that needs to be thought about there. So, you know, should we pay for the entire gas system to keep going and running? Because people love their stoves. I mean, it's a tough choice. I'm not trying to say, you know, you need to give it away tomorrow, but there's just some community and society level things that you need to consider as well. Next, so last slide, which is really just, there's a lot of great products out there. It's a new technology. It's worth checking out. It's really going to improve health, and over time, it's going to save money with the gas system. So any questions or thoughts on that?
Sure, we have some. That was excellent. Thank you. Very informative. I had no idea, so I learned a lot. So thank you for coming and educating myself. I know, and I'm sure the commission agrees.
I was going to say, a few months back, Jim Wong talked to me about it and convinced me to try it. And at that price point that was there, that was up a little while ago, I've got one that's about that size, and that's my go-to. That's what I mostly use at the house now for all my cooking needs. So that and my infrastructure, fortunately, was on the SDG&E side of the house, but they had to carve back 10 feet of asphalt to find a decent enough piece of pipe to patch gas into my home. So it's from the 55, 57 era, a long time ago. So our infrastructure is crumbling around us. So another reason maybe to think about switching in the future.
I have a question. First of all, I did get one of the, I borrowed the ones, and I was really surprised how much I liked it. I mean, I was expecting I'm just gonna change when I change, but I was really surprised how much I liked it. I have a very opinionated son who thinks he's a really good cook, and he was saying that it would never work for a walk. Do you have any sort of comebacks for that?
There's definitely some corner cases that the technology is still emerging, and I think walks is one of them. The problem is the heat is just where the pan touches the surface, and so walks are rounded and
Well, my
the
walk is
side.
flat bottom.
Well, if it's a flat bottom, you should be fine. It's the rounded ones that are a problem. So they have a solution for commercial kitchens, which is an induction cooktop that's actually kind of a bowl. So the pan drops into it and it actually heats the side of it as well.
Okay.
So there are commercial solutions for it. There really isn't a good one for the home. I think there's other cases where like you're searing meat, those kinds of things. And to be honest with you, for searing, maybe you just use your barbecue that day, So there's definitely a few corner cases where, there aren't great solutions. And again, the rounded walks are the ones that again, where does the heat transfer? That can come up. So it's a real question.
Well, great, thank you. It's going to go on my Christmas wish list.
So just one comment. So I think you've convinced the six of us this is the way to go. But convincing the broader public and all that is not just for the cooking, but even for all the other electronification. Is there like a roadmap or something like on the website that could help people or convince people or like show people the path?
For sure. One website I really like is called switcheson.org. All one word, Switch is On.
Yeah.
And it's a California-based website, and it has lots of sort of general education videos. And they have a lookup for incentives by zip code, so you can see what the current incentives are, because it is confusing. And you can also look up contractors if you're going to be doing some of the work on your home. And again, it's by zip code. And so that's a good starting point for folks. I like to point people there. There's others that have emerged that are good as well. Another one that's a national resource is called rewiringamerica.org, and people like that one. In particular, that has a calculator to help you understand some of the federal incentives that people like to use. So there's definitely some resources out there. I know we try to get out into the community, this is sort of my setup for when we do tabling, and we've been to your EcoFest before and others as well. And I think it's just a matter of time for people to sort of spread the word, tell their neighbors, show off their fancy new stove,
Right.
Whatever it is. I think it's just one of those things that will take a little time.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. I have two kind of wonky questions. So one is that when this commission and later the city council eventually approved the updates in Encinitas, to require new buildings to not have natural gas, the main constituency that was in opposition was the electric union from SDG&E, and of course, I'm sorry, the other way around, the gas union, whereas the electric union was like, great. So I'm just curious, and that was, it was powerful. I mean, it's always powerful when the unions communicate well, and it's always hard to look at a whole group of trades folks that are going to be potentially negatively impacted. And I'm curious if you can give just a little bit of a what you see developing on that side of things and how we can help respond to that, because I think it's a legitimate concern, but that shouldn't stand in the way of things, but should be addressed. And then the other is what about policies that really target the landlords? Because there's a lot less incentive for renters to spend money on the infrastructure side there.
Really good questions. So people are working on these things. No easy answers. I'd say on the workforce element, it's something that's probably going to need to be addressed regionally. I don't think these are things that one city like yourself is going to be able to resolve. And so you're really going to want to partner either kind of at a county level or even a state level, I think, to address some of the workforce legitimate concerns. The city of San Diego did a study, did a workforce impacts study about a year-ish ago, and worked with the labor unions to collect numbers to understand how many workers would be impacted, right? So when I talk about saving money, when you go all electric, it's the jobs of the people who lay the gas piping that are not getting those jobs, okay? So that's how you're saving your money, is you're not having to hire those people. So it's a real concern. What they did, though, was they quantified it and looked at, the rate at which the expectation is for homes to transition, the types of work that's going on. Like new construction is 1% usually of our housing stock, and so there's quite a few homes that are still going to need repairs and replacements and things like that. And so what they found is that by 2030, there's almost no impact whatsoever on the folks who do the gas pipeline work. But that, as time goes by, there will be. And I think they had a couple thousand people in the city that would be impacted. So it was not a zero number, but it wasn't like a million, it was like a number of like, let's see what we can do. And there's usually a combination of early retirement, pivoting to tasks and work that uses the same skill set, meaning you're going to get paid the same. You're not starting over again. So a couple of the areas that are of interest are on-site water reuse. That's starting to come up a bit in terms of commercial, in terms of being able to do that. San Francisco in particular has a policy that requires large commercial buildings to have on-site water reuse, which means more pipes, and so that you can kind of redirect that skill set to other complementary kinds of initiatives. And then if somebody's young enough in their career and it makes sense, there could be retraining for some of these other jobs. But it needs to be done thoughtfully. There isn't just a simple answer that's going to work it out. I will say that in the county's RDF work, when they put that document together, they had a really nice section. They hired the same person to do their workforce analysis for the whole county, and they came up with a number of recommendations on how to address some of these transitions, and it was really sort of in that same space of, kind of addressing what the needs are case by case. So it's complicated. There's some folks that are worried about what this is going to mean, and that the talk of things to do is not good enough. They need to see the action, which I think is a fair point. So I'm hoping that we start seeing some more concrete programs that get to roll out that address this. And so it's a real issue, and we just got to roll up our sleeves and figure it out. But what's interesting is that it's a countable number of people, that you can kind of figure that out. So let's see, part 2 was, reminder.
Incentives for landlords, for renters.
Versus renters, right. So there's something they call the split incentive when they talk about multifamily homes. And what that refers to is that if somebody's going to upgrade the building, it would be the owner, right? They're going to pay for adding the new equipment, maybe adding solar, whatever they do. They're the one that's going to pay for it, but it's the tenant who sees the savings, right? On their, because generally the tenants pay their own utility bills. And so folks are trying to figure out, well, why would a landlord ever do that then, right? I'm a landlord. We have a few small properties. We actually had a case of a small home in Ocean Beach that we had, that it was discovered that there was a leak in the pipe from the street to the house, the gas pipeline, and that it was going to cost me $5,000 to trench the yard to replace that pipe. And I decided, in part because I'm in this world, no, I'm not going to do that. I want to use that money to electrify, right? So there may be cases where there's maintenance going on or things of that nature that may incentivize a landlord, but I don't think we can count on that to do that. There's a number of programs that people are starting to think through. There's one that's been proposed at the CPUC. They're still in discussion around it. It's got, you said you like wonky. Okay, it's called IUI, which stands for something utility incentive. I can't remember exactly the letters. That program is very interesting. What it'll do is effectively it's a program that's considered a loan from the utility that will pay for the upgrade, and the tenant pays it back on their utility bill every month. What's really unique about it is if the tenant leaves and another one moves in, it stays with the building. So there's actually the next tenant will have to pick it up. And they will only do it if after you make the changes, your bill is lower. So it guarantees that you've come down. Now, it may not be that much lower, but even if you broke even, it would still be a good deal. And so I'm very interested to see that program. I think they may do some pilots on it and sort of make sure that it actually works out. But there's folks trying to figure out how to make that work for those cases.
Thank you so much, and those are great answers. And I think it's, I think at least around here, a lot of the tenants are probably more environmentally minded than the landlords, or at least it's more front and center.
Right.
And so I love that idea, if that could be worked out, because I think the tenants need to have something that they can push the landlords with, and that sounds like a good one, doesn't cost them anything, and potentially, gives a higher value to it makes it easier to rent the property to another tenant down the road.
Yeah, and I can tell you on this rental that we had in Ocean Beach, we did a couple things. One is there had been a furnace on the wall, and we replaced that with a mini split. And so mini splits will do both heating and AC, as well as the induction stove and the rest of it. Turns out it was a young couple. About 6 months later, they got pregnant. And they were just telling us these stories. One, how grateful the woman was that over the summer they had AC. And after the kid was born, how much better they felt that they weren't burning gas in the stove around their kid. Yeah. And so it was really kind of nice to see that afterwards. And I could see how that could become a selling point, particularly for some folks, to be able to say, this one's all electric, we have AC, we're going to be healthy for your kids. It could become a selling point for landlords. But it will be an investment, so it's tricky. I will say the best time to electrify is on a failure, right? So if something fails and it's time to replace it, you're already going to be putting out money for the new one. It may be a little bit more to go electric up front, but there are incentives, and again, hopefully there are things that will raise the value of your rental at that time. Sometimes people throw around numbers. It's $20,000, $30,000 to retrofit something. It's like, yeah, but if you wait until you were going to replace it anyway, maybe it's only $5,000 more, not $30,000 more. So.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kelly. That was an amazing presentation and
All right.
really convincing. And just neutral. You presented the information in a neutral way, and I'm sure that's appreciated by a big swath of people.
Well, thank you.
It sounds like the outlook is really good for California in this regard, but I'm wondering kind of on a national scale. I've just kind of been following this account on Twitter that I think is like Gas Action Leaks.
Oh, yeah, I love that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's just always, there's a lot of pushback from the gas industry about these, electrification, this electrification push. And so I'm just wondering kind of what you see the outlook is on a national scale. Is opposition ramping up, and kind of what are some actions that are being taken to try to push this electrification move forward?
Super good question. It's complicated. Somebody showed me a map that was fascinating that showed across the U.S. by county where are homes already electrified. And it turns out that in the large portions of the southeast of the U.S. are all electric. And it's a matter of history why it happened that way. I think it had to do with the TVA and the prices and things like that. But it turns out, and also, in rural areas, sometimes it's difficult to get natural gas there. So they're either all electrified or maybe they have on-site propane that's delivered. But it's actually more in the urban areas that use gas. And so you may find that that's more correlated to folks who might be open to this kind of change. So I think that's one thing to be aware of. For example, in Florida, it's almost all electric there already. Done. Now, there's, of course, pockets. I'm not trying to say 100%, but it's super common. People don't even think anything of it. There you go. Yeah, for sure. And then, but in terms of, I think of the utilities, SDG&E, oil and gas company, it's their business, right? It's their business model, their responsibility to shareholders to make as much money as they can, And so, I never think of them as being evil or, trying to undermine society for the most part. It's just, it's their business model. It's how they get paid. It's how they get rewarded. And so I think in particular for utilities, the grand bargain we have with utilities that we gave them a monopoly is that they're regulated. And so I really think the pressure needs to be on the regulators to regulate because the utilities are going to do what utilities do and do the best they can for their shareholders. And so I think the pressure really rightly belongs at the CPUC level and, comparable commissions across the U.S. to be regulating them and ensuring that we're really looking at the broader community needs. California does okay with that. It's actually not as much of a leader as I would have thought in that space. They have had cases where I wished they had done more, but maybe they're just pacing themselves and realizing it's going to take a little bit of time. And I think like any industry, you look at solar. There was a time, 10 years ago, not even that long ago, where it was like, it's impossible to have, the grid have more than 10% solar at any moment. The grid will collapse. Guess what? We've had days where it's 100%. In Australia, they've had days now where it's 100% rooftop solar in the communities, because they have a very high penetration of rooftop solar in Australia. A lot of times there's fear, uncertainty, doubt, and, just give communities and give the technologies time to work this through. Let's do it in a way that's smart, and we'll get through this together to the end.
I have another question. I'm wondering if you have any insight into the building electrification issue, such as what Encinitas had put a pause on their building electrification.
Yeah, no, that's a super good question. So in 2019, Berkeley was the first city in California to do a gas ban for new construction. And since then, it really took off like wildfire across the state, including Encinitas, to follow, the similar pattern for new construction. I think it was up to 80 or 90 cities or municipalities before this lawsuit happened. And what happened is, as soon as Berkeley passed, SoCalGas worked with the California Restaurant Association to file a lawsuit and say, we don't think this is right. They came up with some, legal reasons why they thought, this shouldn't be happening. It kept losing in court year after year, and so cities kept going forward saying, it's losing. Yeah, they're fighting it, but it's losing. Boom, all of a sudden, everybody was completely shocked last April when, a particular path through the appeals actually said, yes, we agree with the California Restaurant Association. And the basis of that agreement is there's a federal law that has a bunch of rules, and they basically said it violated that federal law. And so that's being appealed. And then whatever way that turns out, that'll probably be appealed too. It may work its way all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they'll figure it out. It's probably going to take a few more years. So congratulations, they figured out a way to slow this down a little bit. But the reality is there's other methods that people can use to electrify. That one particular path was cut off that folks had been using, but there's lots of others. Even within California, the REACH codes that are out there, they've now come up with another strategy that they think is consistent with the lawsuit that is another step in the direction of encouraging electrification without fully requiring it, right? So you can walk right up to the line and not cross over it, and we'll play this game if we have to. And so I've encouraged Crystal to talk to folks about whether that might make sense in your community, to revisit that and see if that might make sense. It depends on the work plan and what you're working on, but it's effectively an energy efficiency code that just bumps the number up a little bit of how efficient folks need to be with new homes. And if they build it all electric, you're done. If you still want to be mixed fuel and have some natural gas, you have some work to do. You're going to have to add more things to become more energy efficient. One of the easy ways would be to add a backup battery to that home. And so a mixed fuel home could meet that requirement. Might cost them $10,000 more. Might make them think twice about whether they want to go all electric. But it could work for both. And so it's an energy efficiency code that, again, just gives the builders yet one more nudge to go all electric. So there's lots of smart people out there trying to figure out different ways to do this. I will say the health issue is a big one that's coming up in terms of a different angle. So all of the work in California has been around energy efficiency and trying to look at it from that angle, as well as greenhouse gas emissions. There's another angle that's looking at in terms of health impacts and the nitrous oxides. And so there's a number of both federal and state agencies looking at the health impacts of the combustion and what the impacts are, and there may be limits on appliances and some of the regulations that are coming along. So people are scouring all the different ways to do it. They're clever, they'll come up with ways. I'm sure there'll be more lawsuits. We'll all duke it out. This is happening. It's just going to slow it down a little.
Yeah, it was, yeah, thank you so much, and yeah, super informative. And I think just the last comment of what I'm thinking, this is, it's similar to I think smoking over the last, we used to be able to smoke on planes.
Yep.
I wonder if they were smoking up here years ago, right? Things like that, which we can't even conceive of. And I was thinking of walking in the grocery store the other day and how it's more uncommon to not have your own bags, where if, even 10 years ago, like if you had your own bag, it's like, okay. So, I mean, I think just that mindset, and which they're working on other things, because there's the plastic industry. So, and I love the way you kind of look at the opposition to this of, hey, they're just going to do this. That's what they're going to do, rather than that there's evil thing. That's what they're going to do. So I think it's great, and I think it's just, informative. So I really appreciate you educating us and whatever we can do to kind of get that information out there, because a lot of this stuff is new to me. I'm sure it's new to some of the other commissioners. And yeah, thank you for coming here tonight and letting us know about this.
And I appreciate Encinitas being a leader in this space. You really have for many years, and I think this commission can take credit for a lot of that with Jim Wong's era, where he was bringing up a lot of things, but really, throughout time. And it makes a difference. People really do look to Encinitas as a leader in this space to kind of clear the path, and so I look forward to you doing that more in the future.
Thank you. Real quick, one question I had. Do you know what it costs to dispose of an old oven?
People have talked about what to do with an old one, particularly if you replace it before its end of life. There's a dump fee if you bring it to the dump, and I believe large appliances have rules that they have to be recycled. I guess I'm not totally sure if it's stoves. I know refrigerators have to be.
I'm just wondering if it's
I don't think it's
$400.
crazy, though.
Okay.
Some folks have talked about, donating them to Habitat for Humanity or, to folks who can reuse them, maybe down to Mexico. So, you do have to figure out what to do with the old one, but that's true even when it fails.
Yeah. Okay.
So usually the contractors know how to play that game.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to stick around and hear what you guys have to
Yeah,
say.
please do. Well, that was great. So next item on the agenda is the approval of the October 12th minutes. Anyone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Informational items. Crystal, you got some B-City info for us.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Adams, Chair Adams. I'll be presenting to you tonight an update on the city's B-City affiliation and where we're at and where we're headed. So just a little bit of background. B-City USA is an organization that promotes, it's an initiative of the Xerces Society, which promotes pollinators, pollinator habitat, increasing of pollinator habitat, providing pollinator nesting sites, and then also protecting those pollinators from pesticides. And the way that they approach this is they aim to get cities and campuses to be an affiliate of the program and move their work forward in their individual cities and on their campuses. So these are the commitments that a B-City affiliate must commit to. I feel like my microphone is really loud. Let me just turn it down. Okay. Is that better? No. There. Okay. So there's 8 items. First, you need to establish a B-City USA committee within your organization. And then create and enhance pollinator habitat on both public and private land. And then create a native plant list and native plant supplier list for your city or campus. And then also look at reducing the use of pesticides. And then incorporate pollinator conscious practices into your city policies and plans. And then host at least one pollinator awareness event each year. And then publicly acknowledge your B-City affiliation through physical signs out in the community and then also online through a website. And then lastly, apply and annual renew your affiliation. So here's Encinitas' affiliation history. So back last year, actually on this same date, exactly a year ago, council members Lines and Hinsey initiated an item to recommend the city become a B-City USA affiliate, and they recommended that this affiliation be kind of born out of the Environmental Commission, that the Environmental Commission support the affiliation. So on January 25th was when council actually directed the action that staff apply to become a B-City. And then on March 10th was when Encinitas, the application was submitted prior to that, and we heard word that we were approved as a B-City affiliate on March 10th. And then April 22nd was the first event that we promoted pollinator awareness, and that was at Arbor Day last year. So here's a kind of a summary of status of what staff has been doing to kind of address our affiliation or support our affiliation. So we did establish the B-City USA Committee. It's actually a part of the Environmental Commission work plan. So Novi, O'Connor, and Switzler have all volunteered to be a part of that committee. So that's been established. The second one is to create an enhanced pollinator habitat. This one I'm indicating as in progress. We have a native plant list that was created as part of the native plant policy development. That is on hold for the time being because it wasn't funded for this year by council. But the hope that staff is hoping that next year council will make it a priority and continue that work. Park staff is looking at city property each year, and when they go to do replantings, they are considering putting in natives as opposed to non-natives. And there are a couple of sites that actually already have an extensive amount of pollinator habitat, and that's at Hawkview Park and Sun Vista Park. One of the big accomplishments that we've completed as a city is reducing the use of pesticides. So we have a very progressive, comprehensive, integrated pest management policy that was established in 2019. And our Public Works and our Parks Department follow that policy, and it vastly limits the amount of pesticide use on our public facilities. There's guidelines on when and where pesticides are allowed, and it's quite strict. There's a several step process to go through before pesticides are selected as the final alternative option. So that's great for our public facilities. And then the fourth one is to incorporate pollinator conscious practices into city policies. So this one I consider would be done again as part of that native plant policy. As I mentioned, it's on the city's work plan, but needs funding. And then hosting the pollinator awareness events. The minimum is one per year. We've already done actually more than one. We made this the focus of our outreach at both Arbor Day and the Egg Hunt, and definitely happy to do more if that's of interest. We can definitely do it at EcoFest, obviously, and we try to get out in the community as the sustainability division at least every month or so. So we can always dedicate one of those outreach events to promoting our B-City affiliation and encouraging others to participate as well. We can also do social media outreach. We've done it a couple times. It's been a little bit since we put something out recently. We do have a website, which is actually the next item. And we can always direct folks there, but we can add some more online social outreach there as well. So I touched on item 6, which is the website development, and then we still do need to get signage out in the community, recognizing our affiliation. But the website is up, and I think that's a key resource that signs wouldn't necessarily be providing. And then the last 2 items are related to just applying and renewing, and we'll definitely keep that up as staff. We've got that direction. So in March, we'll reapply and continue our affiliation. This is just a quick snapshot of the website that we have posted. It provides some background information on Bee City and then a few links to resources. I didn't catch the entire page. Further down, it shows events that are coming up that people can participate in. And then next steps. So as far as next steps, I would suggest that the Bee City Committee choose a date to meet. I know it's been a little while since we convened, so that would probably be a good next step and provide some suggestions on kind of where staff could direct our efforts. The city will look at habitat enhancements on city properties. So one of the things the committee can do is reach out to our parks and public works staff and kind of collaborate with them and coordinate to see where that could be most appropriately done. Of course, as staff can be doing more pollinator outreach, and the committee can support us in that. And then lastly, developing that native plant policy. It would be great if it could be funded next fiscal year and we could work on it as staff. We can add more things to this list, and when the committee meets, we can definitely talk about that. That wraps up my presentation, and happy to answer any questions.
I had a question. The other my fellow commissioners on the subcommittee, did we all sign up for getting webinars and emails and things from the Bee City? Okay, because every so often they'll come out regional or just updates and stuff. So I was curious if we were all getting pinged with those. And then I was wondering, I know at one point after a webinar, I think I reached in about No Mow May, I forget what the month was. I think you reached out to city parks to see if they would stop in certain areas or on hillsides, not just making it beautiful bare and leaving him based on that recommendation.
Yeah,
from the
and we
city.
can do that again too. I think it's always helpful to get reminders and maybe even talking with them about more of a permanent policy, not just 1 month, but if there could be, a process or a guidelines or some sort of established process that certain areas can grow longer. I mean, I would imagine there's some play areas need to stay short, but maybe in some other areas it would be appropriate to allow the grass to grow longer.
I saw a photo of the trail walk the other day that was just blooming beautifully, left alone to its own
That's
way.
awesome. Yeah.
And then last was, are we allowed to have any affiliation with an actual business like James McDonald's Bee Company? He goes out and does outreach quite a bit to some of the same functions or various ones that maybe we don't as a city go to. Are we allowed to have a relationship?
I would have to look into. We have pretty strict policies on partnerships, so I'd have to circle back with you on that and make sure that we're following those policies.
I have a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot for Arbor Day, so please feel free to contact me and those on the committee. It's really a good fit to do Bee City and Tree City, because
Yeah.
Arbor Day is about Tree City USA.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
So that, and which brings up, do we have Tree City signs?
We do. Yeah. We definitely have those. Those are up. I know that for sure.
And I do have one more thing.
Sure.
I think that the Parks Department does a fantastic, and Public Works does a fantastic job on integrated pest management. And so it's kind of hard for Encinitas to reduce pesticide use in the city. But I think, I think it would be good to try to work on some sort of public information campaign, some sort of reaching out to the community to talk about reducing pesticide use. And, I don't know how that would look, but I think that, to me, that's where the more bang for the buck is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was going to offer up, I'm not sure when we first did this, if we were all in attendance or not, or I took it because I love bees and eating, and they pollinate our food. But if you have a passion for it with trees, I would let you have my spot on the committee if you like. it's not really ocean related like my normal nexus is with plastic and stuff, but I would be more than I don't know if this is the right point in time to do that or behind the
Just
scenes.
bring it up again when we do the action item on the
Okay.
work plan, and then
All
we
right.
can make the formal
But
change.
I'd be happy to
Yeah.
give you my spot if you want it.
I was just going to chime in. That was good to know about the native plant policy. I had been wondering about kind of what the status was of that, and I'm really eager to see that kind of become more developed. And it's a really crucial part of Bee City, and it's a nexus of so many of the city's goals, and I know everybody agrees. And so kind of just also thinking about not mowing. The area, the rail trail south of Santa Fe looks amazing. The area north gets just mowed every year, and it's so sad and depressing every time it happens. You see all the animals like looking for habitat. They used to live there. They have nowhere to go, and they're running onto Vulcan. So that feels like a priority action item for parks. And I did bring it up when we had our IPM kind of meeting, but it would be a good reminder. I'm not on the Bee City subcommittee, but just to kind of alert folks, maybe that could be pinged again, brought back up to the forefront. Thanks.
Just a couple things. Krista, can I ask you to, poll the committee members to set a meeting? Or would that meeting be a part of the commission meeting? I guess I wasn't ever sure.
No, it would be, it's one of your subcommittees, not a formal subcommittee, but one of your assignments on your work plan.
Right.
So yeah, we can do that outside the commission meeting. And I will circle back. I'm actually headed out on a little bit of time off. So in a couple weeks when I get back, I can circle back and
Well
schedule the
deserved.
meeting.
And I was just going to say, if we can try to make it happen before the end of January, I think that would be
Oh,
reasonable.
yeah, that's definitely doable.
And then can you just go back to the list of yes, that's one. So just a couple of things. So one thing that was really interesting was that the Xerxes Society, team, I know reviews documents, and I know we feel that our integrated pest management policy is really good. But I had thought that at some point we might receive some feedback from the Xerxes Society as to, is this a really good one, or is there anything that's, so I just wanted to check and see if that is, a part of the process, and if it is, can we,
I wasn't aware that was, I'm definitely happy to reach out to them and ask if that's something they're willing to do. I wasn't aware that was part of the process, but happy
you have to send it to them, and they have to see you have one, and I assume that they had, again, there's some assumptions, but I assume they have some minimum standards.
Yeah, that's a good point. They do ask you to each year document that you've been working on your commitments.
Okay.
It's not required that you meet all of the commitments within the first year, but you're right. They would be asking for documentation that you're working towards those commitments, and we would be submitting our IPM
If
policy.
there is any way to get feedback, I think that would
Yeah.
be great. I know from their materials that they do feel that IPM is the way to go. But there's it would be lovely to have an
Yeah,
organization like
that's-
theirs giving us
that's
some
a great
feedback.
point.
I also wanted to point out a couple of things. So one is that the pollinator garden at the Botanic Garden happens to be on city-owned property. And so
Great, I'll
that's
add that to the
probably
list.
something that should be listed. The other thing was regarding the native plant policy, which a lot of us would like to see move forward. Yeah, it's absolutely true what Crystal said about why it's not moving forward. But another piece of it was that several pretty well-regarded folks, none of them were me, recommended that the city trail the county's process.
Yeah.
So the county is very deep and in fact initiated a process to create a native plant policy at the county level, maybe 3 to 6 months before the city started their process. And Councilmember Lyons has been very integrated into that process. And I believe, I don't want to speak for her, but I know that she received guidance from a lot of people who are very wise and said, it's important that the city, it may be beneficial for the city to not get ahead of the county in the process. So there's that consideration as well. And I just also want to say, just because we're involved in some of the projects, the city really does continue to bite off vegetation management projects and enhancement projects that, while the policy doesn't exist, are really designed to improve pollinator habitat, mainly by using really appropriate diverse native plants. So work continues. If we had a policy, I can only imagine that work would absolutely conform to it. But with my dealings with Parks and Rec staff, the lack of policy at this stage is not prohibiting really good work. I think, frankly, the main thing prohibiting more work is funding for the projects. And there are some really great citizen groups. Mark Wisniewski lately has been turning his attention to I always forget the park's name, the one in Leucadia on Vulcan.
Leucadia Oaks Park.
Yes, Leucadia Oaks. He and some others, including James, have identified an area that they are proposing would make an outstanding pollinator garden in that space. I personally think it's a great idea too. I can only imagine Parks and Rec think it's a great idea as well, but would require some of that stuff. So really good stuff is happening, and I'll look forward when we have the meeting to making sure we can capture all that. But certainly getting the policy eventually done, the native plant policy will take us yet to another level, and most importantly, should there ever come a time when the people on this commission or the people on city staff have forgotten the need to do these things, they will be forced to. Private property is a whole different legal shebang. Thank you, Crystal, for doing this. And I did let some folks know who had asked about this, that this was being addressed today. And of course, if they couldn't be here today, they can listen later, if you're listening out there. Thank you for caring about pollinators.
Cool. Anybody else? All good. I love this tree on the stand-up paddleboard. That's a great. That would be great for promotion. That just caught my eye. I thought it was great, very creative.
Next year, maybe we could do a bee on the stand-up paddleboard.
Yeah. But I guess that was tied to the Arbor Day. Okay, moving right along. Thank you for that, Crystal. Super informative. Awesome to hear a lot of really good things going on. Action items. This is you too, Crystal. The work plan.
Yep. Okay, so as usual, we'll go through your work plan and provide updates, and then give you an opportunity to add any additional updates that aren't on this list. So regarding commission outreach and representation, I wanted to note that sustainability staff is planning to host a booth at the Encinitas Street Fair on Sunday, November 19th. So if any commissioners want to come and participate to provide outreach to the community, you're welcome to come. I'd love an advance notice that you're going to be there and when, because then we can adjust staff and timing and account for that. On priority number 2, which is the Environmental Awards Program, I wanted to just give a heads up that the commissioners that are assigned to this should start thinking about advertising for the award opportunity. You can go ahead and start advertising as soon as the new year starts, because it's an award for this past calendar year. So if you want to start drafting that now as we head into the end of the year, feel free to do so and coordinate with Maria and I as you work on that. Native plant policy we touched on already. I'll just skip to the things that have the red updates. Oh, sure.
It's only on Sunday?
It is. I was surprised about that too. I double checked. Yeah,
I was thinking that too. What time is it at and where is it?
I believe it's pretty much all day, like 9 to 4 or something like that, and it's right in downtown Encinitas.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right, and regarding the smoking ordinance, the signs have been fabricated. They are in hand at the city, and they're waiting on scheduling with public works staff to be posted throughout the city. So I'm excited about them. They are big and bold, and they have a QR code where people can get more information about the program. So I'm excited to see them go up. We're putting up 74, 5-ish of them, so throughout the city. So, yeah.
Crystal, I have a question. Eric was here for the last meeting that I attended in September, and he said he might be able to get us just like a map of where they're going to be put in, or is there
Oh, yeah.
anything like that exists?
I
we can look at?
I can send you that. I'll send you what we have at it. It's multiple pages. It's not like one summary map, but you'll see every location.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Just remind me since I'll be gone in a couple weeks if I forgot.
Okay, will do. Thanks.
Okay.
Can I ask a question on that one?
Sure.
Have the stickers been sent out to the businesses yet?
Yeah, all the sticker, before the ordinance was effective, we did the big mail out citywide. So all businesses received a letter informing them of what the requirements are, including a sticker for businesses. And then residents received a postcard. And we've got a bunch of extra postcards and stickers that we ordered. So if any businesses need additional stickers or lost their sticker, just send them to City Hall and I'll give them a stack.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and then I wanted to mention that the signs were purchased by the San Diego County Health and Human Services Agency, which was great. They have a program that funds smoking outreach. And so we saved a little bit of money. Under the mobility element update, I wanted to share that one component of the mobility element, the vehicle miles traveled analysis guidelines, have been completed, and they were presented at council on November 8th. I apologize, I did not go back and check to see if they were approved. So I can let you know that next meeting, but as of the posting of your agenda, we didn't know the result of that yet. So, and then next is the 5-year cap update. And I wanted to share that our consultant, Epic, completed the city's baseline greenhouse gas emissions inventory and projections out to 2050. And they're in the process of developing the public outreach plan for this process. And as soon as I have that available, I plan to give you a more formalized update here at the Environmental Commission, and then also have an update for council where we share the timeline for the process and when there will be opportunities for public input and how to get involved. Next item is the Green Building Incentive Program. So we have a great intern right now, a College Corps fellow named Nick Bryan, and he's taken on this project as his project this year. So he has been looking at options on how to revamp this. And I think it would be a great opportunity to meet with the subcommittee sometime soon and share some of the ideas that we've come up with and see, get your input and see how we can move the revisions forward. So I'll be reaching out to you separately. That'll be Commissioner Switzler and Commissioner Adams to see when a good time would be to coordinate with you on that.
Great.
Okay. And
Would this be a point to fill the vacant spot by request or not?
Sure.
With being the liaison into the chamber, they're starting to work pretty heavily with green business, different, I think, maybe I should rethink this before I volunteer, with trying to get businesses recognized for doing green things, for becoming green, for using solar, for doing all those different, is that the same kind of concept?
This is a little bit different. The Green Building Incentive Program is for building construction that is energy efficient and sustainably minded. So a little bit different than running the business and having your business operations be green.
And retrofitting or things like that.
Yeah, retrofits. Okay. And the Green Building Incentive Program is really geared towards folks that want to build their building either to LEED or build at green standards. And then the thing that we are proposing to add to the program is individual item-based incentives for things like induction cooktops and heat pump water heaters and additional insulation, things like that are smaller items. So a little different than running a business. How about you think about it?
I will think about it.
Okay. All right, and then next item, new update was on the food service plastic ordinance. Morrison was switched out with Kramer there for that item. And then I think that rounds out my updates. Does anyone have anything to add?
Mark and I are working on the update to the food service item ordinance, and we will present that, we believe, next month with an agenda report for the commission to consider updating that to further restrict some single-use plastic items, food service items. So stay tuned.
Perfect.
I just, it's a joke. I got a ridiculous piece of plastic in food. I don't want to say who it was because it's embarrassing. But I repurposed it into an amazing carnivorous plant terrarium. It was that quality of plastic. So I don't know. At some point, maybe we can have an arts and crafts show of how we reuse plastic, because I'm proud of this one.
Is it single use?
Yeah, I mean, they said it was, but it was crazy.
Yeah, it's getting out of hand again.
It's getting out of hand. Should we add the
Number
presentation
16.
that you just gave into the B City USA update? Or would that show up next month?
Yeah, I can do it for next month.
Okay.
And
And then-
can I get on the subcommittee?
Okay, do we want to?
Just add that, for that one, just add it into the motion.
Got it. Okay. So when I do the motion, I outline each individual update?
Just anything that was substantially different than what I already presented. So I think
Got it.
really the only one is making sure that Commissioner Parker is switched, so O'Connor is off the B-City subcommittee and Parker is added.
So can I make the motion, or? I'll make the motion to remove myself from the B-City number 16 on the work plan and nominate Commissioner Parker.
Wait, the motion should be the approval of the plan with the edit. You want me to do it?
Yeah.
We want to do
it.
all, we want to do it all.
Oh, I see the entire 16 things.
I'll do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
you do it.
Ready? So I love this stuff.
He's back.
I love bureaucracy. My years working for the federal government were not in vain. I will make a motion to approve the updated work plan as edited, with the additional edit of removing Commissioner O'Connor from item 16B City USA and adding Commissioner Parker.
I will second that.
Do we vote?
Yeah.
We vote. All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
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 I didn't know if it becomes an official vote or we just do the all in favor.
Official. Maria, would you mind running an official
Oh, we do do it,
vote?
okay. No, we've done it.
Oh,
the
have we
past-
not?
Only
I'm
once in a
sorry.
while. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we
I
need
think
to.
we
We don't need to.
just
I just
ask
wasn't
for
sure.
ayes, and then if
Okay.
there are any nays.
Okay, perfect.
That's when it-
All right,
okay.
we're good then. Okay, thank you. That's
That's
why we
what-
have Maria here.
Well, that's why I didn't do the all in favor. I wasn't sure.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay.
So we're good on the work plan and then the calendar.
Oh, yes, let me mention the calendar, I'm sorry. So I added this new for this time. This was something that we had kind of touched on last time, and I thought it would be good to kind of just keep a running list of what you've got coming up. And so it's just by calendar year and kind of goes over what you should expect to be doing as a commission each month. And so I'll just skip down. You can kind of read this at your leisure, but I'll just skip down to kind of where we're at in the year. So September, last month, or 2 months ago actually, we had selected the chair and vice chair. And then coming up in December is when you should be thinking about initiating the environmental awards program. The awards are actually awarded in kind of the February, March, April timeframe, but you advertise for it prior to that. So that's why it should be starting to be thought about in December. And then also in December, Environmental Commission recruitment starts for any of the commission seats that are up for renewal. So, I thought this would just be helpful for you to keep in mind what kind of work you have throughout the year, what's coming up.
Thanks, Crystal. Appreciate that. Okay. Do we have any commissioner-initiated action agenda items? Looks like we don't. Number 9. Moving on to number 10, any updates on items of interest?
I've got a couple. Saturday, November 18th, Surfrider has its monthly beach cleanup at Moonlight between 9 and 11. And then from so many years ago, on that side of this dais, Surfrider and a bunch of people started a little subcommittee on balloon pollution. And that's still going on. And the city passed an ordinance. Solana Beach had passed an ordinance. And Del Mar has a first read this Monday, 13th at 4:30 to do the same, to mimic pretty closely to these other two cities. So I just wanted to say that work is still going on to protect the oceans.
Great.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. I have an update. I have recently been communicating with the SRF farm manager because I saw that they were clearing a lot of native habitat with tractors that are a mix of their land and city land, some city easement land. And so he's really great, open person to talk to, got out of his tractor, because I kind of waved my hands what's going on here? When some native buckwheat was being cleared, just everything being mowed down all at once. And he explained to me that SRF received a notice from, I'm not sure if it's a city or the county, about the land being in violation of city abatement policies. And so that kind of started a conversation. He came back again and we chatted. He took me around in his pickup truck, which gave me a tour of SRF farm properties, their coastal properties. And they're just such a major landholder. They have a lot of land and no staff to farm it now. A lot of the farmers have aged out, and there's just a couple of people managing all this land in Encinitas. They also have a giant farm in Escondido, too. And so that's the reason that they're not growing pumpkins in the field north of Santa Fe any longer. They just don't have the staff to do it anymore. And they don't really have someone to kind of come in and see what's native, what's not native that can be removed, and really follow the city fire abatement policies, to the T. So they're kind of just sort of indiscriminately kind of mowing everything down for now. But they are, especially this farm manager was really amenable to finding solutions that could protect or restore native habitat while, being in compliant with fire abatement policies. They just were kind of reacting to getting these notices and just wanting to deal with it all in one fell swoop. They also get fined by the city, they said, during the wintertime on the Cornish property because it's on a really sloped area. And so storm drains come off of Cornish and hit the field, and then all that soil goes onto Vulcan, and they get fined every year for it, I guess. And so he wants to kind of figure out ways to have some soil retention areas in that field. And so there's kind of a lot of synergies there, and it seems like a lot of kind of solutions that could be arrived upon. They have the machinery and the equipment to do things that might need to be done. They don't really, have a big budget to do it. Unfortunately, his name's Rich Taylor. He was going to speak today during oral communications, but he just had a 9-hour day in the field, he said, so couldn't come today. But I extended the offer for him to maybe speak to us for an informational item in the future. So hopefully he'll come out and we can maybe just kind of brainstorm a little bit about what can be done there. And they were not aware of the native plant policy either, so I think that might be another thing, when there's outreach being done, that we actually do have this policy in place. Maybe there could be some incentives provided to, prevent that stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to announce the Botanic Garden just received a $500,000 EPA grant to put together a consortium of mainly native plant experts, but also some community agriculture and a few other experts, and Coastal Roots Farm is involved as well as a few other partners. And it's specifically a grant to service 3 tribes in San Diego County to help them develop plans, monitoring, and enhancement of their natural lands using this kind of knowledge. So we're in a good community to do all this stuff, and it's really a lot of fun to do it. And there's a lot of aggregation of agencies, nonprofits, universities, UCSD, and Cal State San Marcos, and San Diego State are all also involved in that work. So fun stuff, and it would be fun to talk to SRF, honestly, as well.
Anybody else? Nope. Okay, moving on to number 11, future commissioner-initiated agenda items.
I think this is the appropriate spot to try to get on the agenda for next month the topic that we brought up in the work plan about the amendment to the city's single-use plastic ordinance mirroring Carlsbad's. There's months seem to go by. We're working hard on an agenda report, and there's so much background information talking with Republic, who's part of it, what can be composted and not, and having conversations with EDCO on the same topic. And they may have just developed an actual approved product line booklet for restaurants and businesses to be able to know what is compostable and what is digestible. So there's a lot of work, but we'd like to ask to have our presentation next month. Of course, if these meetings we hope to have penned and it doesn't make sense to do it till we have answers that we don't have now, we'll, of course, cancel it with enough notice, but we'd like to have that on there.
Do we have anybody for a presentation next month?
It sounds like what Commissioner O'Connor is asking is to have actually an action item.
Oh, an action item.
Or
not
a
presentation.
commissioner-initiated action
Gotcha.
item, so it'd be under item 9.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, it was.
Yeah. No, so you're right to bring it up under item 11
Okay,
tonight.
but
But
we're
what
putting it in
you're,
at 9, I see, okay.
yeah, what you're asking is for next meeting to have your item agendized under item 9.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I thought that's what you're asking for at first, and then I thought it went switched. And so this, bringing it up here is just kind of gauging the interest of everyone, and I think seeing his nod that people are interested in it. I think we've talked about it before.
Yes.
So now it's just getting it together, getting it
Formalizing
to
it.
Crystal,
Yes,
and in time for her to be able to put it on the agenda,
yes,
unless I'm wrong. Yeah.
yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. Any questions on, I guess, that or anything you want to have? Cool. We're all looking forward to it. Anything else on future commissioner initiative?
I should have just said probably at the previous one, but if anybody has any speaker recommendations, you're welcome to email them to me, and I can steward them to the subcommittee. And of course, always CC.
Did we? Yeah, I actually had a question. So did we establish a subcommittee? We did.
Well, yes,
We did establish a subcommittee for speak.
us.
It's you two. Okay.
Thank you.
I wouldn't mind being on that too, on the subcommittee. Am I already on it? I don't know.
I can't remember
I don't
what
remember
the
who it is.
rules of that committee
But
are. I have to go back and look.
yeah,
I
I'd
don't
love,
think there are any rules.
No, we did a
Yes.
whole, there's a policy.
yeah, you can't have more than 3 because of the Brown.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was an official subcommittee.
Yeah, no, it's actually like,
Is it on our work plan?
it's not on the work plan, it's created separate from that. We actually approved I don't know what you call it, or something, yeah.
I thought
I wrote it.
presentation was going to be non,
So,
Yeah, I'm proud that I used that subcommittee for tonight's guest speaker.
And it worked very, very well.
Yes,
Thank
it was
you.
very.
So it streamlines things, we don't have to talk about it much here.
Okay, good.
And if anyone wants, email me if you want on the committee, and email me if you have recommendations, and then we can go back and look at the policy and just see what it accommodates. And
okay.
do we have, what's on the agenda for speakers the next few months?
I don't have anything else.
We have no more speakers now, so.
We're working
Right.
on it. We have some
So no,
suggestions.
that's good to know. I just wanted to kind of put that out there that if you know or
Yes.
you think you have something like, I mean, I think how we saw like Kelly's, it's super informative. And I think just kind of gives us a lot to kind of take away with and spurs ideas and stuff. So,
Everybody has to propose somebody who's as good of a speaker as Kelly.
yeah. Good luck.
Which would be a high bar.
Excellent.
You guys are
She was
welcome.
excellent. Okay, I think that's it. Moving on to 12, we can adjourn. All in favor?
I
All right.